Hey friends, Dean here. Before we get you on to your episode, I want to take a moment to invite you to our next virtual online trivia night. Wednesday, May 13th at 8 p.m. Join us either on our Facebook group or on our YouTube page for 3 rounds of fun trivia, music questions, movie questions, general knowledge questions. It'll be a fun time and a chance to win some prizes and have just a good relaxing night of some trivia at home. You don't even have to go out for it. So don't forget, Wednesday, March 13th at 8 p.m. Join us on our Facebook group or YouTube for 3 rounds of fun virtual online trivia. We'll see you there. Put that coffee down because we're waiting for the new leads, the Glengarry leads. In this episode, we're talking about the profanity-laden classic from 1992, Glengarry, Glen Ross. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome to the 3324 podcast. If you're new, we appreciate you checking us out. But guess what? There's a whole bunch of other episodes you got to get caught up on. We'll wait here for you. No, we can't wait. I'm sorry. Just please do us a favor. Go check those out. If you're returning, you are caught. We're going to assume that you're caught up. So welcome back. We appreciate it. I'm Dean behind the microphone. We've got Eric.
Hello.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
And we've got a special guest. This is our second guest. We had one guest for our Nirvana episode. We're bringing in the big guns. We're bringing an actor in for a movie about actors. And it's a good friend of ours, Sean Grady, who is an actor I've had the privilege to see perform. Let me build you up first before you say you're high. I'm really going to really send us up for you. I first saw him perform Brothers Karamazov for the Red Monkey Theater Group, which is in Westchester County, New York. A bunch of other stuff. I think The Seagull. The list was long. And then I had the distinct pleasure and honor to work with him also when I was directing short films. And he was gracious enough to read some of the stuff I wrote. And he said, okay, I'll do the guy a favor. So Sean Grady, how are you, Sean?
I'm great, Dean. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this. Love the movie and love talking about the movie.
Awesome. So we are talking about the 1992, what I think is a classic, and it's become one in with time, and probably with the advent of YouTube as well, Glengarry, Glen Ross. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to give you some of the stats, and then we're going to dive into this. Just before you know, if you've never seen Glengarry, Glen Ross before, it's got a lot of cursing in it. More specifically, the F word. We're going to try and refrain from it, but it's got 138 Fs in it. To
Dean
contrast,
actually did the math. He actually counted it. That's great. That's
fantastic. we live in the digital age.
Well,
but since you said that, Eric, there actually is a list of films that have the most amount of Fs in it.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
The number one of major films, the highest amount of Fs. No.
Goodfellas.
No, not even close.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Goodfellas has 300.
Oof.
The major film winner has 569 Fs in it.
Oh, wow.
Have I seen it?
Wall Street.
Wolf.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
now I'm totally
Leo.
nuts.
That's just
okay. Well, it had to be a Scorsese.
That's just a hedonism to the extreme. That film, and oh my God, I felt like when I saw that movie in the theater, I felt like I was like tripping the whole time. It was just like being on an extended 3 hour.
What is it? 3 hours of debauchery in that movie?
Basically,
completely. Yeah.
Basically
crazy.
So yeah, the internet is always good for that. There is a list of the 150 most like vulgar films or 50 most vulgar films. Yeah. Goodfellas came in at number 15. Just if you're asking, Reservoir Dogs is like 30, Pulp Fiction 31. So a lot of Scorsese films though. Departed 36.
Of course,
we're getting off. We're already off the track, already off the rails on this one. Oh. But let's get back.
It all ties in.
Duly noted, there is a lot of swearing in this film. So if you haven't seen it before, really be prepared for it. It certainly is not a record holder, but it's swinging with the big guys. So this came out in 1992, directed by James Foley. kind of an up and down career with James Foley. He directed At Close Range, then kind of did some smaller stuff. Most recently, he's done the 2 sequels to the 50 Shades of Grey films. The screenplay is by David Mamet, based on his play from 1984. This had a $12.5 million budget, and it only made $10.7 million back. So at the time, certainly was not, it didn't cost a lot, but it also didn't make it back. It was just kind of really just something that kind of came and went. I'm going to roll through the cast. There's 5 or 6 main characters. Al Pacino plays Ricky Roma. Jack Lemmon plays Shelley Levine. Ed Harris plays Dave Moss. Alan Arkin plays George Aronow. Kevin Spacey plays John Williamson. And for the sake of this episode, we will just be talking about Kevin Spacey's acting performance in this film. We certainly don't condone any of the accusations or anything he's been accused of. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Pryce plays James Link. And Alex Baldwin plays Blake, a character that was not in the original play. And we'll get to that in a little bit. And then finally, Al Pacino was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his work in this role. But something very curious happened that year. He won an Oscar, but not for this role. He was also nominated for Best Actor, and he won for Scent of a Woman. Hoo-wah! Yeah. So, Sean, what are your first memories? How did you come to this film?
My first memories of the film, I actually did not see it when it came out. I don't remember it. And I was senior in high school, 92. So I don't remember the release. I came across it after college. A buddy of mine had it on VHS. He said, "You want to take a look at this? It's also a play." I'm like, "Oh, it's got Pacino, it's got Jack Lemmon, it's got Alec Baldwin." So I'm like, "Yeah." I popped it in the VCR and fell in love with it from like scene 1, the Alec Baldwin scene, which is not in the play. Really grabbed me like that. I mean, that performance, it's a shame it's not in the play. And Mamet has refused to put it in the play in all of the revivals. But that's when I felt, and I was just out of college and I was deciding, do I go the acting route? And I wanted to perform in that play, but I was too young. It was just something I would have to wait to sink my teeth into. And eventually I was able to talk about that later.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a little while too. What about you, Eric? What are your memories of this, and how did you come around to it?
Saw it once in the theater. I guess when it came out, and I realized because I just watching it recently that I did only see it once, but because it was so memorable, it felt like I had seen it many times, and I was racking my brain trying to think, how many times did I actually see this movie? And yeah, I can only remember the one time in the theater. I don't remember watching it on cable or having the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. But just seeing it recently, I think I watched it like 3 times in preparation for this. But
it's certainly not a film that you would gather the family around to watch on a Sunday night after the wonderful world of Disney.
That's right.
But yeah, I actually, I'm the lone guy. I saw it in the theater in 92. I remember back, we're talking pre-internet. So the only way you got exposed to these things was either maybe a commercial on TV, which I don't think so. I probably saw the trailer in a theater and I was like, holy shit. Like I think the Baldwin scenes are in there, and just the cast at the time. Some of them actually back then were still kind of unknowns. Ed Harris was known for The Abyss. That wasn't a giant James Cameron film at the time, so he wasn't gigantic. Kevin Spacey had yet to break big. This was an early role for him. So it wasn't like there was this all-star cast. It was more like the Jack Lemmon and the Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Alan Arkin has been around, so certainly have a lot of respect for him. So then I saw it in the theater and was absolutely mesmerized. It instantly became one of my favorite films. Absolutely. Just amazing, and because of the language is a part of it. But, we'll get to Mamet, kind of there's a thing called Mamet speak about David Mamet and how he writes for characters. And maybe that was one of the things that drew me is how he writes. It's kind of realistic, I think, because it's kind of a staccato style of writing where sentences are incomplete.
Yeah.
They'll stop in the middle and move on to another thought. And it felt like that's how people talk usually. They don't say things the full way and always say a character's name in a, like when they're talking to people.
It's not monologuing. It's real conversation. And of course, it's interesting to note that the play itself, I mean, it's pretty much verbatim, right? The play versus the movie, because I had never seen the play.
Pretty close.
So
it is a little different, which
Okay.
we'll get to is the Alec Baldwin factor. Okay,
but the play does have the profanity, correct?
Yeah.
Does the movie have more profanity than the play? Okay.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, it follows that structure.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
But then when they went to mount the production of it on film, that it was a couple of years in development. They were kicking casting around, and one of David Mamet's favorite actors, Joe Mantegna, was tossed around. He had done House of Games a couple of years before with Lindsay Krause, who's an actress, which was Mamet's wife at the time. So he was using a lot of his hometown favorites, and then they finally got around to doing this. And there was this character called Blake that was written for the film, and Sean made a really good point that the play has been done in revivals since 92, not very often, but often enough. But when they do the play from its 1984 original manuscript. They do not acknowledge the character of Blake, but that character really is a catalyst. What do you think, Sean?
I think for me that's one of the most memorable scenes of the entire film is Alec Baldwin. He comes in like a shot, gives him the sales contest, the sales pitch, and the more I think about that, because I watched the film a couple times in preparation, he's selling them just as much. I made $970,000 this year. How much did you make? This costs more than your car. My car costs more than your. I think I'm wondering how much of this is real, and how much is if he's just like a hired gun to come in there. He's the good-looking guy, the nice suit. He's got all the bling. And how much of it is real? But these guys, because he's given the appearance of success and he's oozing all this success, that they're kind of they don't have. They try to come back at him, but they, Ed Harris Moss, he gets his guts after he leaves. What's this guy talking about? He tried a few times, but he just steamrolls him, Alec Baldwin, and I read that. That they kept him away from the cast, kind of shunned him a little bit, and he kind of used that to motivate his speech, and he was really giving it to him because of the way they were actually treating him on set and keeping him isolated, not kind of bonding with him. So I love the scene. I would love to see it in a play.
Yeah, it gives him the ability to come in hard.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, in comparison to the play, how important the scene was, but I think you guys pretty much nailed it. Yeah, I think it kind of sets the tension, right? It sets the draws the audience in, and you're setting up that tension and giving us the situation where these guys are at. I don't know how the play sets that up, though.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Well, let's roll back a little bit. So just if for people that haven't seen it, what the film is about real estate salesmen. And they're not the high end. They're not selling high end houses or land, luxury apartments or condos. They're selling really just. It's pretty close to fraudulent stuff. It's really shady. These guys are on the lower end of real estate sales. Speculative. They get leads, from magazines and from people that mail in interest cards, and they're cold calling. They're doing all that kind of stuff. So basically, how the movie starts, and the movie only takes place over an evening and a morning for the most part. That's one of the things about this is not a lot of stuff happens in the film per se. There's not a lot of plot to this film. It is just the events of an evening and a morning after. And what the evening is there is going to be a sales conference, a meeting about the performance of the team, which is Jack Lemmon, Alan Arkin, Ed Harris, and Al Pacino's characters, and they're all expected to be there. How the play starts off, it starts off with a restaurant scene, which actually kind of doesn't happen until a little bit later in the film. They kind of move some stuff around, and they do actually add a little exposition in the beginning of the film. They give you a little bit more about the characters. There are some interactions. Most of the beginning of the film is not in the play. The play kind of picks up in the after effect of the Blake character that we never see. Is that a fair assessment, Sean?
Yeah. And it's fun. There's a lot of characters even in the movie that we never see that have a lot of weight. That's what I think is interesting about the film. There's Jerry Graff, who there's a lot of characters that are like mentioned that you never see, but they hold a lot of importance in these men's lives. And so the film, I think it sets up that tension and the urgency the characters have, because if they don't, the sales contest, what it means is you can have 2 top finishers and the rest of the team is going to be fired. First prize, Cadillac. Second prize, steak knives. Third prize, you're fired. This is the motivating meeting. This is going to get everybody psyched up to get out and sell.
Third prize is you're fired. That's definitely how you get people motivated. Is tell them that you're going to get rid of them and have Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin was really riding high. I mean, his star was at this point probably on the rise the most, because he had come off of Hunt for Red October, Miami Blues. So Alec Baldwin was a big get. At the time, he was still that kind of unknown quantity. He had done really well with Hunt for Red October. So he was on the rise. So they have this character Blake who comes in from downtown, right? And what Sean alludes to is characters that are mentioned but never seen. And the first one the first or second one is Mitch and Murray, right? Yep. And Mitch and Murray, we assume, are the owners of Premier Properties, right? They're like the kind of the guys that are unseen. So Blake was sent from Mitch and Murray to go give these guys a quote unquote pep talk, because I'm not sure if I sat in on that quote unquote pep talk, I might have the Moss attitude. It's just one of his performance, Alec Baldwin, it was written for him, right? Mamet had said, basically, he wrote this with him in mind, and Alec Baldwin had actually waffled a little bit. He didn't want to do it, then he did, and then he finally agreed to it. It was frightening. Watching that for the first time, that performance is kind of frightening of how direct he is, how nasty he is. These are supposed to be colleagues, and how these people are spoken to. That was what was bracing for me probably at the time when I saw it, is just that it wasn't violent. There wasn't any threats of violence. It was, those threats were with words. Yeah.
And the thing of it is like, it's a character that you think, I mean, this is a person that Alec Baldwin, of course, he's a good looking actor. He's, big on the rise and all that, but he felt like a real person. This is somebody that you believe could do this kind of thing in this kind of situation. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would want to work in this, in this office, to be honest. I mean, just being in this situation. And I think that alludes to the idea. I think some of these folks have families, I guess, right? Yeah. We talk about characters that are mentioned, like Jack Lemmon's daughter. Yeah, apparently is in the hospital. Do we even know why she's in the hospital? Like it's never revealed, right? It's just
and that's the great thing about this film is you don't need to know why. You just need to know that she is. And so Mamet gives you just enough. He's not going to blow you away with the backstory. It's kind of like that there's a daughter. There's a couple of phone calls, and we know that he's worried about her. So that's one of the great things about it. But out of the Blake or the Alec Baldwin scene, we already get classic Glengarry lines. Some of them we can't repeat, but the famous ABC.
A always, BBC closing. Always be closing. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is one of the classic. This is the closest. Alec Baldwin's scene is the closest thing to a monologue, actually. There are very few interruptions. Where actually with Moss, the Ed Harris character, he's the only one that really breaks up Alec Baldwin's scene. Everything else, he's talking to each different character. So it is the closest thing to a monologue. But oh my God, it is just an amazing piece of writing where he just gets to it feels like he knows how to get to the heart of each one of those people. He approaches each character in a different way. Moss is kind of going back at him. You're such a hero. What are you coming down here for? And Alec Baldwin's character goes right for the heart and just seemingly is very intuitive as to what the weak spot is, and just making like laying into him about where he is in his station in life and how awful he's doing. And then when he goes after Jack Lemmon, really just kind of almost going after his masculinity or his lack of salesman skills, that he's been in the game so long, that he's old. I think he's able to zero in. He's
kind of losing his touch. He was once a revered, he was the machine. He was the king at some point, I guess, or at least you gather as much.
Yeah.
And of course, curiously, the only person not present during this meeting is
Roma.
is Mr. Roma, Al Pacino. I'm sure. Go ahead, Sean.
I
jump in.
Think when you were talking about Shelley, like I kind of go back and forth with Shelley. Was Shelley a great salesman, or is he a great salesman up here? Like I don't know. Like I go back and forth with that. Like I'm sure he was probably good at one point. He's definitely losing his touch. He's kind of reeking of failure and desperation at this point of his career. So I kind of go back and forth. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
I kind of like to think that he was once a Roma.
I've been there.
I think he was. He was hot at one time. He was the man. He was, because the way he talks. I mean, when he's in the zone, the way he talks to these people, the way he. On the other end, you never hear who he's talking to or whatever, but it's like he seems to have the slickness, the sort of
But there's a couple of good points that are made. So we'll talk about the Levine character. So he's an older salesman. It's Jack Lemmon, kind of been there, done that. Is still kind of hanging on. Still working in this business after all these years too, which is kind of curious that he has never gone above this or done anything more. Later on in the film, Ed Harris says, well, I don't want to hear any of your war stories. So it's curious that if someone's that great of a salesman, would they have to keep telling everybody how great they are? True. I bought because there's references later. I bought this guy a Cadillac. I was, for 8 months, I was this and that. And if you're really that great, I'm not sure you would have to keep reminding people. Unless it's him selling himself.
He's being, at this point, I think he's being pretty desperate and having to do that because he has to maintain that sense of self, like the what he once was, and they're kind of sick of it. Like, you're not what you used to be. There's probably going on in their heads. Again, and it's all ego too. All these guys are pretty much in their own little sort of bubble. At least that's the impression I get. Each guy is kind of struggling with something, so they want to be the top salesman. They don't want to hear whatever. Even Al Pacino. And when he comes in, he's obviously the man. He's so everybody. But you notice that nobody's really kissing up to Al Pacino either. So it's kind of like
no, but he's also kind of left to his own devices. He's performing, so he gets the luxury of not having to come to the meeting, which irks. Yeah. Which irks some of the other salesmen as well.
Harris.
They have to get berated and belittled and stand for that. And someone else who works in the office doesn't have to. So basically what happens to move the story along is there's a bunch of new leads that are available that are really premium leads. These leads will probably lead to sales, not the stuff that they've been banging around with and calling multiple times over and over. So there's these new leads that are dangled in front of everybody, but these guys are not going to get them because they're deadbeats. They're just they're not great salesmen. So why would we waste them? We're going to give them to the people that close, to the people that are salesmen. Yeah. So those leads are dangled and then removed and put back into the office. One of the reasons why Ricky Roma, Al Pacino's character, is not there is because his sales tactic is a little bit different. He also is kind of a little bit like a snake charmer, or he kind of slow rolls people. So he meets somebody in the bar that's across the street, the Chinese restaurant where all these guys congregate. They go, they make phone calls there. I guess they're not allowed to use the office phones because they're using the pay phone. Like there's phones in the office, but I never see. I think you see one personal call, but they use the like Jack Lemmon's like, hey, if I get any calls, let everybody know I'm across the street. It's like, wait. Why can't you get a phone call at the office?
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
I just thought that was kind of weird. Like they treat the Chinese restaurant like it's an adjunct of they're using the bathroom there. They're all in the bathroom talking. That's like the satellite office, and that's where we meet Al Pacino's character, who comes in and gets a drink and starts a conversation. And then there's just a random guy at the bar who kind of joins a conversation that he's having. And that's the in. And that's where Ricky Roma's strength is people, is selling him. He sells himself. He doesn't sell the land. He sells, I think, the relationship.
I think that's a great point. Part I love in the movie that's not in the play, where they see Ricky at the bar getting the drinks, and he gives him a wink. He gives I think it's Levine and Moss a wink, like, watch what I'm about to do. Like, and this sale took him. He missed the sales meeting. It took him probably all night, but he worked this guy over, and he made him a friend. Almost said that this guy didn't want to disappoint him by not signing the deal and buying the parcel of land, Glengarry Highlands. And he worked really hard, and that's why he's really upset the next day when all hell breaks loose. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
When things
that they're
change.
buying him.
Yeah. And you mentioned it in the beginning, Sean, of people selling each other, right? You had questions as to whether or not Alec Baldwin's character actually makes the amount of money he says, or has the watch, or really has that really nasty. He just doesn't have a great attitude. But is he amping up his resume, quote unquote, to motivate this team into action? So you kind of said, well, he's selling to these people. Ricky Roma is selling to this guy. His name is James Link, right? And there's some other selling that goes on. So after the sales conference breaks up, everybody's going to expected to go out at night and go contact some leads and make what's called a sit, which is basically an appointment with a customer to get the opportunity to sell to them. And no one can seem to really make anything happen. These leads are really dead. So Shelley Levine, Jack Lemmon's character, catches Williamson, who's played by Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey's character is the office manager. He's really put upon, not respected whatsoever. I mean, these guys just talk to each other awfully. But Levine approaches Williamson outside when he's about to leave with an offer. And this is where another kind of selling comes in, is he wants to buy some of those leads, because he's not going to get the leads. He's going to buy the leads with the promise that he will close them. And then he will give he'll kind of give some money to Williamson, to Kevin Spacey's character. So there's Levine selling there, trying to sell Kevin Spacey. And I think I have questions about this too, because there's in the scene, Kevin Spacey's character says, okay, yeah, I'll do it for 20% or 10% of what you come in with. And then an additional $50. It makes me question whether or not he was ever going to do it, or he was just really being mean. I'm not sure, because these two characters really just don't like each other at the base of things. They have a general contempt for each other. So I think that's Levine's first attempt at a sale, and he fails because he can't get the leads, the premium leads.
Yeah, I think I think when he says to him, I haven't got it, when he holds out his hand for the $50, I think that's when I think he was kind of dangling, like, yeah, okay, let's do this. We're talking about this, but I know when push comes to shove and I ask you for the $50, you're not going to be able to produce. It's not going to happen. So please play with him a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he never intended, because he's whatever that character is, he seems like he's relatively a straight shooter, a family man, not going to do something like that to jeopardize. So that kind of fails. That sales pitch fails. Then there's another sales pitch going on, which is Dave Moss, which is Ed Harris's character, and George Aronow, which we really hadn't talked about so much, which is Alan Arkin. And George Aronow is probably the most low-key, probably the character that may have the most amount of a conscience out of everybody. He seems to worry about his job. He's not vulgar. I don't know if you noticed that. He's one of the characters that he doesn't really curse. He's there to kind of do a job, however shitty the job is. He's there to do it. He can't make a sit. Ed Harris's character can't make a sit. They can't get appointments. So Ed Harris says, hey, come on with me. They go to a coffee shop, and now Ed Harris is starting a sales pitch. Mm-hmm. Right? He is pitching to Alan Arkin, and he's spending time with him like he would with a customer, talking, getting him worked up about how unfair this job is and how unfair it is that they don't have access to the leads. And he presents him with a plan.
And Alan Arkin is just kind of repeating everything he's saying, right? Like he's just going along for the ride. Like, yeah, okay, like he's just seems very gullible. The character.
It's a brilliant piece of writing.
Absolutely.
The scene when they get to the bar and Ed Harris reveals that he wants to steal the leads, or he wants a partner to go in with him. And we hear about this other mythical character that Sean brought up, which is Jerry Graff. And Jerry Graff they may have worked with him. Jerry Graff has his own business now. He gets leads and he's selling the same trashy land parcels, but it seems to be doing it more successfully. The scene in the bar, it is so rapid fire. You could not have done this scene without rehearsing. You can't improv that scene. I don't think, Sean.
I agree. It's very, you gotta be on your cues. Those ellipses matter, those those half words, they all matter. It's a rhythm. It's like a piece of music. It's like a dance. It's everything. And when it comes together, it's perfection. Even the little interruptions and you're trying to follow it, but you need it. You need it because that's just real life. And the energy it just has to be right to get it right. So I agree. Probably a lot of rehearsal.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's spontaneous, and it sounds like it's improv, and it sounds like natural conversation. But there's no way you like these actors have to come correct in this movie. You can't have one person out of sync with it because a conversation will fall apart if one of the characters is not in tune with what's happening with the way the material is written. And in that scene, it is so rapid fire. We're talking about this. We're talking about it as a thing. What are we talking about? They just go back and forth so quickly, and the editing is rapid fire as well. And it's almost funny, just only because of how they're dancing with words and they're saying things, but they're not.
Yeah, it's like there's really nothing there's no point being made necessarily. It's just they're just complaining about their jobs, they're this, they're what that, they're cursing about this guy, that guy, and unless they're talking about trying to rip the place off or whatever, that's the only time you get a sense of something actually happening or something going to happen at this point. Because otherwise it is just conversation, right? It is just, dialogue. It's just, whatever.
Yeah. It is just pretty much straight up conversation, but
so there is no room for improvisation. You're saying that's what you're saying with this from your experience, right, Sean? And doing the play.
No, you got to respect every one of those ellipses, those half words, half lines and interruptions. You got to respect it for it to work. Agreed. No, I just think Alan Arkin's character, there's a lot more to him than we see on the surface. The more I watch it, the more I find Aronow's character, he knows a lot more than he's letting on, and he's kind of hanging back a little bit, staying off the radar. And in the end, who's number 2 on the board when all is said and done?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing with the fallout of who's left. Mm-hmm. I just think he comes off as shut your mouth and observe and kind of listen and try and get a read of a lay of the land before you do anything. But also that he's just a working man. So that scene it ends with Ed Harris saying, well, if you're in, whether you're in or out, you're kind of culpable because you listened to me talk about this. So you're kind of already guilty by association. So you might as well do it. So, and so that that conversation leaves, and we get another sad, it's just, you have to feel bad for Jack Lemmon's character in this movie. Mm-hmm. It's nothing but L's on the board for him. He can't post a win. He goes out in the rain. He goes to a prospect's house. The prospect isn't home, but the prospect's husband is, and he lets him in, and he's trying his old school sales tactics. This guy just doesn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And the look, it's just like, we don't want it. I got no money. I don't want to do anything with you. Leave us alone, type of thing. And it's just the look on his face is just defeat.
Yeah. Is that in the play? That scene?
No.
Where he goes to the guy's house, or?
Yeah. No, it is not.
Yeah, I just think it serves to illustrate. I think it deepens his character a little bit. Yeah, because you just see how how far he's fallen or continues to fail.
I think Jack Lemmon deserved an Oscar nod for best supporting or even best actor for that performance. I think that's
I totally
one
agree.
of his best.
I agree. I mean, this is something. I mean, you don't normally hear Jack Lemmon dropping F-bombs every other word, and among other things, that's so to me that was a shocker because he's such a prestigious actor. I mean, he's done, he's been around for quite some time. So to hear the language coming out of this guy was just, couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I think that the Ricky Roma character, Al Pacino, has probably the meatiest part, probably the one that's the most fun to play because he is so savvy and he's ahead of the curve and he's got no cares or worries. He seemingly comes naturally to him. So yeah, Jack Lemmon's character and his performance is filled with alternating, happiness, sadness, anger, contempt, you're watching this older guy just continue to fail, and reaching lower and lower depths of desperation, which is what it is because of that lingering in the background about his daughter in the hospital. We don't need to know what the problem is. We just need to know that she's there and he's trying to get money. Like they want money from him, and he can't get leads from his boss. He can't make that sale. He can't close a lead that he has when he goes right to the people's house. And he throws some stuff, I like fishing and he's given the spiel. Mm-hmm. Guy's just not buying it. Just not interested. Doesn't want what he's selling. So then we finally get to all this time. The movie hadn't really spent a lot of time with Al Pacino. We kind of got a lot of these alternating scenes. And now we finally get a lot of the Ricky Roma character. And we really get to see Al Pacino kind of work. Yeah, he had two, he had this and he had Scent of a Woman, two very different roles, mm-hmm. But similar. I think they both kind of created the Al Pacino character. Much like Jack Nicholson is a character that when they get to a certain point, they start playing like themselves. I think these two roles kind of cemented like the Al Pacino character. Like all the impressions came from obviously from Scarface. I mean, not from Scarface. Well, maybe a little bit, but from Scent of a Woman, right? Everyone does. I just did it in the beginning, so everybody does that. But I think the scenes that he has here are much more subtle, especially when he's really slow rolling this customer because now they're sitting together, they're sitting closer. There's a little more drinking going on. He gives life philosophy. He really goes deep with the sales pitch. He does not talk about land mm-hmm. until the very end. Mm-hmm. And the way he does it, he makes it seem like, like this is just another part of our conversation that it wasn't leading to this, although we all know it was.
And you made a good point about retreating to that restaurant where it's darkly lit and in red and all this kind of shady stuff is happening at the bar and so you can't help but read into that too. We didn't really talk about the way the film looks, the way it's presented. The night before it's raining, it's night, it's raining, it's
very shadowy.
You got the jazz music playing in the background, you got and then then of course the next day it's, well, we'll get to that, but so we haven't gotten there yet, but
and I think the scene, because we get extended scenes with Al Pacino, and he does a lot of, I guess, close to monologuing as well, because the character of Link doesn't really say much. He's just kind of receptive and kind of, Roma's just kind of really playing off certain inadequacies, I think, that he picks up, Sean.
I think the Jonathan Pryce's character, David, I think he does, again, watching the film to prepare for this, I noticed a lot more. It's hard to play that kind of role where you're just receiving the information when somebody's got a long monologue, and he does it well. And he's great in the second act, the second part of the movie, when he comes back, which I'm sure we'll get into. But that's very tough to be in that kind of. I've played those kind of roles where I had to listen, and one of the best compliments I got was, "I believe that you were listening and that you were engaged and that this was having an effect on you." And you get that from Jonathan Pryce because it is great writing, and that's also helpful when you're listening to great writing and a great actor deliver those lines. And like you said, Roma's working this sale. He's, this sale comes at the end of the whole thing. Like, you don't even have to talk about this if you want to, but here it is. Maybe you're interested in this, maybe you're not. By this time, this guy wants to please Roma. Like, he's got this guy eating out of his hands, and he'll do whatever he wants him to do at this point. And I'm sure that alcohol probably play a little factors into it, but it's definitely him that he's buying.
So yeah, I think so. And what you said about Jonathan Pryce, you can't understate that. It's very hard just to be someone who's reacting and never. It's one thing to react in a movie and then say something in reaction to it. The character of James Link by Jonathan Pryce doesn't really say a lot in this whole section. He's just kind of receiving, but like Sean says, kind of reacting, and you have to watch how sometimes it's just a slight eyebrow raise or a little tweak or twitch of the lip. It's very important. Al Pacino kind of reminds me of like the snake in the Jungle Book. He's just like slick.
Oh yeah.
He's kind of wrapping his coils around this guy, very slowly and sweet talking him and just kind of really getting him in position. He's moving him around. He's moving him to the left, moving him to the right, getting him set, laying it all in. And then when he brings out the brochure, he's like, he goes, it might mean something to you, it might not. I don't know anymore. So he's almost like making like forgive me. I don't even almost like I'm not in control. I don't even know what I'm showing you. I don't even know anymore. So it's kind of funny. And then he opens up the brochure and it's land. It's land in Florida, which is the end result. That's what everybody is trying to do in this movie, is sell parcels of land to people. You get it to varying degrees of success. Some people take this route, the slow roll. Some people, Ed Harris's character in the beginning, you see very, very telling. He tries to be very nice to Mrs. Swoboda when he calls her in the beginning, but gets very, very tense very quickly when the husband's not around. He's all right, well, I'll call you back then. Like he does not have the sales skills.
Very,
so he's kind of like on the lower end.
Yeah.
Levine might be in the middle where he kind of is a salesman, knows how to do it, but just not successful. And then Roma is just the killer elite of salesmen. He just knows exactly what to do. He's in no rush. He knows he'll get there eventually. And then the whole cafe au lait scene.
The hook. Yeah. Well, we know something about Jonathan Pryce too, right? He's got a wife at home who is probably wears the pants in the relationship. Jonathan Pryce is kind of like a little bit of a kind of a wimp, I guess you could say, so she calls the shots, right? So we kind of gather that information as we go along, but and that's exactly where Roma knows how to target that and get in there. And, so it's a rather brilliant, effective performance, but you believe it. You feel like this guy could be talking to you and trying to sell you something too. Like if you're not careful, I mean,
And
as an audience member, you're getting
you're getting mesmerized. And for Al Pacino, honestly, it actually is up to this point, it's a pretty understated performance. He is very in control, very kind of very calm. It's not that overboard performance.
The boisterous.
Whereas
so when did his voice, I'd like to know, when did his voice change? Like you watch old movies, you watch The Godfather, you watch Serpico, his voice was so like
mousy,
mousy and timid.
Dog Day Afternoon.
When did he get that, voice? I'd like to know. I'd like to know what the first movie was.
Maybe it was his role as Big Boy Caprice in Dick Tracy. He did that.
There you go.
He did that in 1990 with Warren Beatty.
That's right.
And, you just said goodbye to oxygen.
That's right. Yeah.
Dead Dick.
Oh, anyway.
I like that. I was like Al Pacino in a comedy, and he's doing Dick Tracy like in makeup. I'm like, geez.
Right.
And then 2 years later, he's winning an Academy Award. I thought when I saw Dick Tracy, he was on like the downturn. I'm like, all right, well, here we go. He's doing Dick Tracy dressing up in makeup. And it's like, no, he wasn't. He wasn't done yet.
Yeah.
But he got that smoker's Scotch voice all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
where it kind of and it ends up it fits him well. So basically, what happens here is the evening ends. So there's all this kind of intrigue of different types of sales going on and different attempts at sales to different extremes and different levels of success. And yeah, it's been raining all night. So the next morning it kind of opens and it's, not raining anymore. It's kind of sunshine. And
Mm-hmm.
and it opens with Al Pacino pulling in front of the Premier Properties, and there's some cop cars there. And he's walking in. He's like, "What happened here?" And the cop's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I work up here." And he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "A break-in." So there was a robbery.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets upstairs to the office, and it's pandemonium.
So what's your first reaction? You think that Ed Harris and Alan Arkin, what they were talking about actually happened, right? Was that your first impression? You definitely thought that they too were in on it?
I think I knew Ed Harris was a part of it. I knew Moss was a part of it. I'm not so sure I thought it was who his partner ends up being. I think I was a little surprised when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give it away.
I pretty much take things at face value. So when they left the scene as it was, I took it at face value. I'm like, okay, it happened. Here we go. And now in this part of the film, the music starts getting a little faster. The background score, the jazz music kind of gets a little more up tempo. Things so it's kind of starts bringing up your level because things start amping up in a pretty quick way. So Ricky Roma's character comes in. He's like, "What's going on? What happened?" There's cops there. Most of the characters are in the office already. Moss is there. Ed Harris's character there is there, and Alan Arkin's character is there. Who knows what they're playing? Who knows how much acting they're doing as this this happened? Oh my God! Who could have done this? They took the phones. Kevin Spacey's character is there as well, contacting Mitch and Murray, letting them know. And that, again, that mysterious Mitch and Murray that is always out there, the bosses and the owners of these of Premier Properties, as it were. Do they know what happened? Are they aware? And the Glengarry leads were stolen. So these premium leads are gone. And that is really the tipping point that drives the rest of I guess it's a two-act movie. I don't really think it's 3 acts. I think it's just a 2-act film. Mm-hmm. It's like the evening and then the morning, right? Sean's giving me this
2 acts
or 2 acts.
Yeah.
So things start to get rolling. And like I said, when the music starts, the jazz music really just starts kicking the tempo and it just starts driving the action.
Yeah. It's unsettling. Your adrenaline starts to go. You don't really know what's happening. It's like, right. A lot of things could be happening at this point. And it's just a lot of confusion as to who's this guy in the office talking to Kevin Spacey's character. Like what's, you're just as confused as Al Pacino is when he walks into the, like what the hell,
Yeah. I mean, his only concern though is
so
the
effective.
Lead that is his leads, right? That it was his stuff stolen. That's all I really care about. Do I have to go back out and reclose things? Am I okay? And he's like, yeah, your stuff's okay. If we need to, we'll go back out and we'll have somebody take care of it for you. So the police are there. So naturally there's going to be some interrogation. So they have the office in the back and they're bringing people in one by one. So Moss is the first one to go in. So they bring him in and we don't see any interrogations. So each character gets interrogated. And the interesting thing about it is we are never brought into that office. We are ever, for the most part in this film, we're with very few exceptions, we're in 2 places. We're in the Chinese restaurant for extended periods of time, and we're in the office for extended periods of time. But we are never privy to what is going on in the interrogation room. We only ever see the after effects of it.
Door opens, door closes, the door opens. Next, who's next? You wonder how those conversations, because every single time whoever comes out, they're not happy. So whatever's being said to each and every one of them is pretty much the same spiel, right? They're threatening them. They're whatever the cop is saying to them. Nobody talks to me like that. Nobody talks to me like that. What is he saying? I'd love to know what the cop is drilling into their heads at that, that each character is pretty much saying the same thing.
The only one who doesn't have like a reaction like that is Roma. He kind of comes out and says, this guy couldn't find his couch, the living room. He comes out kind of cool, but the other ones are like, they did. Like, I wonder why. Like, is it because Roma's just cool and knows how to roll with it and knows he didn't do it? The other guys were a little suspicious, but he comes out cool as a cucumber. Like, no effect.
And I think, Sean, you hit on it, is the different reactions when they come out. But, it's basically Moss goes in and comes out, and then George Aronow goes in and comes out. So basically what we think or what we know are the two conspirators to commit this crime are the first two in. And you have two similar reactions, right? Ed Harris's character is very angry, upset. How could you accuse me? But he says something, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but they say, like, psychologists, when someone says, if you ask somebody if they committed a crime, if they say, I did not do it, that means they rehearse their answer, because usually you would say, I didn't do it. You would use a contraction. So I always caught, he goes, I did not rob the place. Mm-hmm. Coming out with that indignation of your acting, right? It's kind of like you already know he's involved, so pretty much whatever he's doing is kind of that false indignation. So he kind of comes out. Jack Lemmon's character comes in bursting with energy, excited. He is over the moon. He made a gigantic sale, right? And put him on the Cadillac board. 8 units, Mountain View, Harriet, Nyborg, and blah blah Nyborg. So he's, I'm buying. Who wants lunch? I'm buying. So, there's some excitement there. Ricky Roma's, Al Pacino's character says, "Hey, great job. Tell me about it. Tell me about your sale." So Jack Lemmon starts relating some of that, and that's when Ed Harris's character comes out, and he's kind of stewing and moping and almost finding a reason to say that he didn't do it, which is the guilty part of it. He could have just left the office if he wanted to. Yeah. But he kept inserting himself into the conversation that Al Pacino and Jack Lemmon were having for some reason. Like, he didn't need to. Like, oh, they took the leads. Oh, well, they're garbage anyway. He could have left. And then he said something else, which then led to, like, this classic outburst. So I think he did himself in. Like, he was so, he acted too guilty to me. What do you think, Sean?
I agree. I always said, like, what's he still doing around? Why is he still? I think he's also kind of nervous about what the other guys might say. I think it's kind of, I've got to make sure that I can try to somehow control this situation that I have absolutely no control over now, because did we get our story straight? He doesn't know what to do. I think he's feeling very guilty. I probably didn't go well in the interrogation. And now Shelley comes in, shooting off his mouth. And we know that that's going to get Shelley into trouble later on. So maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, you're wondering, like, why doesn't he just get out of that? Because he's got a big mouth too. They both have big mouths. Probably two of the worst guys to.
Yeah, I agree that there's a certain level of acting happening there, and I think it's meant to throw people off too, in the sense, because he's hanging around because he's not guilty, right? Because he's trying to act like maybe he didn't pull this off.
Yeah,
inflections in the performance though, Ed Harris. It's like, in a sense, he's kind of, being like, what the hell? Like, that he's kind of like confused, like as if he didn't do it. You could make that argument, like, well, maybe he didn't do it. Like, an audience member could feel that way, because I think they're kind of setting that up to kind of throw people off, could be. So yeah, there's that classic, and the fact that he gets upset. Why would he get upset? If he knows he did it, he knows he sold it, whatever. And I know he has a certain degree of acting, but why would he get so upset where he has that, he storms out of the office, that classic,
so that leads
F you all, kind of thing.
Yeah, that leads to a classic, some of the classic lines in this play. And unfortunately, if we went over the classic lines, we'd be cursing the whole time. It's just, so we're keeping it tame, but basically, Al Pacino and Jack Lemmon are, Jack Lemmon's relating the story of the sale, and Ed Harris is inserting himself into the conversation where he doesn't really need to be. And then he goes one step too far. And Al Pacino gives him an answer that isn't like, he's like, well, did they take the contracts? And Al Pacino's like, what the F do you care for? Like, what do you care? And that's the really the match that lights it, because then, what are you saying? Why wouldn't I care? Why wouldn't I care that they stole the contracts? Which leads to, because you haven't closed the contract. You forced me. Al Pacino's like, you forced me to answer you. You haven't closed a good one in a week, so on and so forth. So you got no contract to get stolen. And that draws Moss back in. And now he's coming over to the desk. He was on his way out the door, but I think he was looking for it. He's just looking for trouble. I think he was looking for also a way to vent his anger out on the way he was treated by the police. He needed to lay into somebody else, like kind for kind. I think that's what it might have been, is he's got all that pent up frustration and just he's kind of like a nobody. He's kind of passed over and forgotten. So it leads to a great performance by Ed Harris. I mean, his whole thing was leading up to this. Everybody gets explosive at the end of the movie. His interaction with Al Pacino is just incredible. And Al Pacino goes toe to toe. He's just he doesn't back down from him, and he just gets him more and more incensed. And that's the thing, is his level where Eric was talking about, where Ed Harris's level of anger and contempt just keeps rising and rising, and everything comes out. He just lets everything he's been feeling, he lets it out.
And perhaps this is just his final FU to this place, knowing full well. I don't know.
I think it didn't go as planned. I think he realized, and this was him just burning all the bridges.
Yeah.
Right. Because when he's, I'm going home, and Al Pacino can't stop either. That's the thing, is he's like, is this your farewell? Well, I'm going back to Idaho or Iowa. It's like, this is your farewell to the troops. And he just keeps sticking. Like, he knows that Ed Harris is an easy target for him. And it doesn't take much to trigger him. And Al Pacino's character just
unhinged.
It's just one line, like, your farewell to the troops. Is this your? And it's just, you have to see this movie. If you don't like cursing, just get through it. Just pretend they're saying something else.
Is that the moment, Dean, where he pulls the jacket back?
No, that comes later. That comes later. So Al Pacino does a very interesting thing in a couple of scenes.
Hands
you
on
can tell
the
when
hips,
when he gets mad. Yeah. But Moss just has a tirade, and he leaves. I'm leaving. First, he was going to go out, give me some leads, and then he's like, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Iowa. Like, I'm totally leaving town now. Like, which means he's probably not going to Jerry Graff, unless that was just another cover story. What do you think that was? They would know if he stayed around, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, technically Jerry Graff is across the street, so
I think maybe the jig is up, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to get out of here because this is falling apart. So at that point. And it's funny because Al Pacino's character is like, it just kind of gets the conversation back on track with Jack Lemmon. Tell me about the sale. Let's talk about it. I want to hear your story. And at that point, James Link walks in, and he's the guy from the night before. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of wandering up the stairs, and Al Pacino catches him. He sees him before James Link can see him. So Al Pacino's already ready. He grabs Jack Lemmon, gives him the playbook pretty quick. You're a client of mine. You work for American Express. I'm going to throw you the Q. I'll run my hands through my hair. You throw me to Q Kenilworth. And Jack Lemmon knows exactly what's going on. Like, he didn't need a lot of explanation. So this is kind of like one of those old, probably salesman routines that they would pull, pretending to be a client to help your buddy out. So he comes Link comes kind of meandering in. I need to talk to you. I need to talk. And Al Pacino's just giving him the works, giving him every story in the book. I'm going to LA. I got to go here. This guy works for me. I mean, they're laying it on. And this is probably what salesmen really do. This was a fun part of the movie, because you get to see like this routine. It's almost like, like comedy, like Martin and Lewis or Abbott and Costello-ish, where they're just kind of, this is the closest thing probably in the film to improv, but it was written.
I agree. I think it's obviously a great scene, and you just get a sense of just how shady they can be. Just changing, like, you're the client, and Shelley's. I think Shelley's a little like, I think Shelley, even though he knows the game, his mind is a little bit elsewhere. So because he's not always quick on a couple of the cues, because I think he's a little bit Like he's had the sale, and he's also got the robber. There's a robbery going on, and it's just amazing how Al Pacino, Roma, makes Link. Even though Link is the most important person to him in that moment, he makes him almost feel like he's not, and that this guy who's D. Ray Morton is more important than he is. You got to understand, he's from American Express. Like, you're important too, but this guy's more important than you are. And Link's like, oh yeah, like he's kind of like cowering back, trying to get it out. Like my wife doesn't think I should do this, and he's just getting barreled over by Ricky Roma and trying. His wife sent him down there and said, "You don't come back here without that check and that sale canceled." It's just a great scene, and it's just great how to watch Roma work.
It's all in a weird way. I always thought of it as Pacino was almost elevating Link, saying that, these are the kind of circles I run in, and you're a part of that. Cause he's like, I'll take you up. I'll take you to, this is all bull, by the way, but I'll take you to lunch up there. He's a company man. So it's almost like making him feel like he's important, but I can't really talk to you right now because I'm living, I gotta deal with this executive, but you're one of my clients as well. And I have, you're like a client as important as him. But I can't deal with you right now. I got to get out of here. So they're trying to rush out the door. And then a lot of things start happening at once. Aronal comes out. He's done with the cops. Kevin Spacey's character Williamson is coming out trying to call the next guy to come in to call the cops. And then Link says, I gotta get the money back. My wife says I got to cancel the deal. And this is what Eric was talking about. I noticed it happened twice. When it happened, when he said that, Al Pacino turns around and he kind of like his jacket was unbuttoned, but he pulls his jacket back and kind of like throws his chest out a little bit and puts his hands by his side, almost like, because he's not a big guy, but I think it was like a power position for him. She's got to go to the attorney. We need to get our money back. We've got a certain amount of time. So they try and Al Pacino tries to razzle dazzle him with some wordplay, which doesn't really work. Actually, they're talking about business days and it doesn't really work. So then Al Pacino starts that slow roll again about talking, let's calm down. We'll talk about it. And James Link is like, well, you met my wife, which I don't understand. This part always left me befuddled. And Al Pacino's like, I met your wife. What? He's like, well, you met my wife. Like you saw her, alluding that she's either like really overbearing. He's henpecked, whatever it is. But Al Pacino was still like, what? I met your wife. What? I don't understand what the problem is. So he starts playing on some of the masculinity angles of, your life is your own. You've got things that are separate. He's really trying to salvage this. And then that continues to fall apart as well. And I'm not sure, Sean, because a lot of that conversation, he ends up saying the deal is dead, Jimmy. The deal is dead. You know me. The deal is dead. I want to talk about you. My question, do you think he really cares about him? Or do you think that was more, because he spent a lot of time saying that.
I don't.
Do you think he really cares about him?
No,
absolutely not.
No, I think he's giving the illusion that he cares. And he's still trying to sell him. He's telling him the deal is dead, but if he's trying to get him to go home without getting an assurance that the deal is actually signed, like he signed something saying the deal is dead, the check, here's your check, tear it up. That's never going to happen. And it's if he cared about him, then he'd say, here's the check. Okay. I did meet your wife. I understand, come to me next time. The whole time he's trying to keep the sale at all costs.
It's a heartbreaking scene. You really feel for Jonathan Pryce in that scene. And, like to Dean's point with the jacket, that's the moment where he's gearing up. He's rolling up his sleeves. This is, I gotta fix this. So that is the tell where he jumps in, and that's that whole spiel. Like, he's so full of crap. And so,
and just to roll back a little bit before that, Alan Arkin's character Aronal had come out of the office ranting and raving, right? In a different way. Again, it parallels Ed Harris's character, but he had come out ranting and raving and you don't treat people this way. How you talking to me like this? How you going? Another famous scene, go to lunch. Will you go to lunch? Go to lunch. So he leaves. So actually in the office, it's just Kevin Spacey. I mean, it's just Jonathan Pryce and Al Pacino's character, and they're talking.
We had to eliminate those distractions.
Yeah.
So that
he had to
Pacino
get all that stuff
to
out of the way. So he, yeah, exactly. So he could kind of slow roll him again. So they're just about to get out the door. They are walking out. They're going to go to the Chinese restaurant. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk. Right. And Sean's right. It gives him a little more breathing room. It gives him a little more maneuverability. If he can get him just to continue to talk, maybe he can work an angle. I was never sure. I was like, is this him being open or not? But I guess not. As they're about to go, cops come out. We got to talk to the next guy. Come on into the office, and Jonathan Pryce's character is like, what happened here? And Al Pacino's trying to get him out the door. It's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Kevin Spacey's character just blows it. He just blows it. He goes, well, we had a slight break-in. Slight? You either had a break-in or you didn't, right? It's like kind of, I don't know what a slight break-in is. And Al Pacino's angle was that the check was never cashed, right? So we don't have to worry about the deal. The check was never cashed. It's not your money's not going anywhere. Let's just go talk. So that's the play, right? That is the angle, and that's where Al Pacino is going to get Jonathan Pryce back down to the restaurant. Al Pacino says, "Yeah, I'm going to take Mr. Link down to, we're going to go outside." Oh, and then Kevin Spacey's Mr. Link, Mr. James Link. Oh, we cashed your check. It went to the bank. That was, boom.
Boom.
Hand grenade was just thrown in the office.
Because now it's proof that Roma was not being truthful, because he did say to him, the check, you've got 3 business days. Check hasn't been cashed. Don't worry about it. You could change your mind. I was a part of the board that drafted those rules. And then Williamson comes out and goes, we cashed your check. No worries. And boom, everything he had built up.
And what does Roma say?
And he honestly, the thing of it is that he honestly thinks he's doing some good here, Kevin Spacey, right? He actually thinks
he thought he was helping.
He thought he was helping, right?
Roma's response was classic, though. Not to my knowledge. Like, we cashed a check. It's like, not to my knowledge. I didn't know. Meanwhile, he made sure he was in the office not 10 minutes later, made sure that it went down and that it was closed. I got the Cadillac I won. It's like, not to my knowledge. He was immediately like he was going to continue to push that line as far as it could go. So, yeah, and this is the heartbreaking part. You finally get to see some acting from Jonathan Pryce in these scenes.
Yeah.
And this is where, he's kind of like, I like, what am I going to do now? You cashed a check. I thought we were going to talk. I thought you were, I disappointed. Like, he was upset because he let down Al Pacino. I disappointed
he thought
you.
He
I'm
was
sorry.
letting down Al Pacino.
He's apologizing.
And that always got me. It's like, you lied to me and I'm apologizing to you. That just, wow.
Because he was still buying it. He was still buying the dream. He was still buying what Al Pacino was selling, this whole, whatever it is, this image or this whatever, this vision. Mm-hmm. He was still, I'm sorry, I let you down. What am I going to do? Just don't follow me is the last thing he says, like, don't follow me and I'm sorry. And now is when it's on. Now is when you see all the scenes on YouTube or the impressions. Al Pacino turns around again, puts his, moves his jacket back, puts his arms on his hips again, and we can't even repeat it.
That face.
He unloads on Kevin Spacey.
It's a lot of fun to play as an actor.
He lays it into a profound. I mean, you can't even repeat it. Such vitriol, right? Such venom that is laid out against Kevin Spacey's character, because he didn't know, right? He didn't know what the play was. He didn't know the shot. He should have just kept his mouth shut. And instead, by saying something he thought was going to help, he ended up costing this sale, which then cost him the Cadillac. He lays into him, you have to watch this movie. That the scene it's vulgar, it's profane, but it's also just great, and it's greatly acted, and it's so well acted.
And that's the moment where when you feel bad for Kevin Spacey's character now, because he's being so belittled by Pacino. I mean, you just tearing him down, and the look on Spacey's face is just. It's heartbreaking. It's like the way they talk to one another in this film. It's like it's despicable. We're so riveted by the performances in this movie, and you could almost call this movie a guilty pleasure. We just did a whole thing on guilty pleasures, but if this could be that, because as an audience, you're riveted by these performances, but these characters are absolutely despicable. You don't know to hate them or to feel sorry for them at one moment. You're like, it goes back and forth. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're
so it's
not
just, you know,
they're all flawed characters.
yeah.
So what that leads to is Jack Lemmon comes over to gloat and says to you know, because Ricky Roma, Al Pacino goes in with the cops. Jack Lemmon's hanging around. He starts gloating. This is his opportunity to lay into Kevin Spacey as well. You don't know anything. You know, you don't have any experience. He goes into this whole thing about being a partner. You got to be with them and for them and everything. And then he says, you don't make something up if you don't think it'll help, or, you know, like you don't lie, like if you don't know what the shot is. And that kind of reveal is like a light bulb moment for Kevin Spacey. And it turns out that Kevin Spacey was lying. The check didn't go down, but he would thought that was helping at the time.
Yeah.
But how did Jack Lemmon know that was a lie? So now we get more stuff that's unfurled, and this is where Kevin Spacey kind of finally gets a little retribution too for being so put upon by everybody. He determines that, or he has suspicions that Jack Lemmon may have robbed the office, because how did he know that the contract was still on the desk? He actually didn't cash the check. He just made that up because he thought it would help.
Every time I watch the movie, I hope for a different result, even though I know I know what's going to happen. I always hope for a different result. I guess that's a sign of a good performance by Jack Lemmon. I still hope, and even though I know.
Yeah, and it's sad. He ends up admitting that he was the co-conspirator with Ed Harris. So he does give up Moss. So Alan Arkin's character was actually innocent. And that's when he came out so upset. Why are you talking to them this way? I'm a working man. He was genuine. He didn't do anything. He didn't have anything to do with it. So his indignation was real, and it was validated. So now Kevin Spacey's going to go in and, well, you know, I got something on you. I'm going to tell the cops. Jack Lemmon, his final attempt at closing a sale, gets Williamson off to the side. And it is, oh my God, it is heart wrenching. Mm-hmm. He got paid cash money for the leads. He got $2,500. He's off his daughter. He's got to use that money to pay for his daughter's hospital. It's just so sad the way he's offering them, here, take the money, take the $2,500. Like that, the lure of money will help make this, fix it. He doesn't want the money. No, Shelley, you ruined my office. I don't want your money. So then he says, well, I'll give you half of my sales for as long as I'm with the company. And Kevin Spacey's like, what sales? And this comes down to the sale he just made. He goes, Jack Lemmon's like, I just closed $87,000, which leads me to my big problem with the film. It turns out that the $87,000 sale was made to people that just like talking to salespeople. They're crazy. The check is no good. It was never going to be good. And you just see like Jack Lemmon just kind of look, because he was so happy. He thought he was back on the winning track. And when he found out that this sale was a bust, he lost everything.
Yeah, like I said, it kills me every time. I always hope that he keeps his mouth shut. That he just couldn't keep his mouth shut, and I think that's what has hurt Shelley as of late, is he just doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut, and he might have gotten away with it had he kept his mouth shut.
Yeah,
and he had to gloat. He had to just. Because he remembered the scene in the beginning when he was asking for the leads and Williamson was playing with him, and this was his moment to pounce, jump on Ricky's coattails, and it did him in. And it is, he tries every trick in the book to try to, the final sale, as you say, Dean, it's a great point, and he still can't close.
Yeah, and it's sad because the final thing he says is like, my daughter. Like, what am I going to do? My daughter and Kevin Spacey's character's just, like F you. I really don't care. I really don't care. Everything out of your mouth is just, and basically he doesn't like him. So this is an opportunity to get it. So that's it. I mean, so now he's going in with the cops. He's got to go in, and everything kind of ties up. People are coming in, they're plugging the phones in. Life is kind of getting back to like normal. The hustle and bustle's beginning. George Aronow, Alan Arkin's character, comes back in from lunch, and like Sean said in the beginning, top man is going to get a Cadillac. Second prize, set of steak knives. Third prize is you're fired. Turns out there's only going to be two people left in the office. And so now they're getting back to it. The phones are plugged in. So Al Pacino is on the phone calling a lead. George Aronow, Alan Arkin's character, on the phone calling somebody, but he says something so telling it's like one of the last words, one of the last lines. This guy's like, God, I hate this job.
Pretty much says it all. But let's not forget the conversation that Pacino has with Jack Lemmon. Right now, I'm going to ask you guys, going to pose this question. Do you think that he gives a shit about Jack Lemmon?
Dean, what do you think? I'll let you go
just
first.
Like he's just selling another.
I think he did. I think there's that salesman. I think that Al Pacino's character recognized, that he's one of the old school salesmen, because he was making plans. He goes, let's go across the street. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about working together, see what we can do. I think it kind of maybe energized Al Pacino's character a little bit. Ricky Roma, kind of like, that shit you were slinging on my guy was the old stuff. I loved it. It's kind of, let's talk about that.
I think out of the other two guys in the office, maybe Shelley is the one he could identify with more or care about. But here's the one thing that is in the play that's not in the movie, is that after they have this spiel, like, you and me, we're gonna talk, we're gonna work together, and Levine goes into the office for what we know is the end. He tells Williamson, all his sales, I think it's like either 50% or 20%. You put me in with him. So whatever deal he's gonna work with Shelley, he's got a deal with Williams. He's trying to make a deal with Williamson that he's gonna get a percentage of all Levine's sales. So it seems like it's a nice thing that's going on, but he's gonna be taken from him, and Levine and Shelley doesn't know, which makes it even more heartbreaking. But the movie doesn't put that scene in there. And sometimes I actually read a version of the play where that scene wasn't in one of the versions of the play. So I don't know if that scene is one that has been added or deleted in the play. So that my thought, now that I know that, I know that he doesn't care. That he doesn't care about him.
But in the movie, he did. They made him care in the movie.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He was a much more sympathetic character. No,
I don't think so. I think there's a absolute sad inevitability.
They're all cutthroats.
To Pacino's character, that he's going to be the next Levine. That's my opinion. It's like, I would take away, he's going to make that fatal mistake at some point, and he's going to end up just like Levine. That's how I interpret the ending.
There are no saints. They're all cutthroat. They're all sharks. They're all out for each other. That's basically how it wraps up. So for us to start to wrap up now, what we want to talk about, which is very special, and why we have Sean with us too, is that there have been we didn't even get into the staged version, and we won't, because that was just something for another time. But in January of 2009. So we're talking 12 years ago. Sean had the opportunity to play Ricky Roma. It was a local staged reading of Glengarry Glen Ross. So Sean, what I'd like to hear, because I don't think we ever talked about it, I was the cop. So we'll just kind of leave that to the side. I had like a couple of lines, but Sean really had the meat and potatoes, and probably one of the more difficult roles. What was your approach when you prepped? Did you try not to watch the movie and say, well, don't want to go there?
I kind of made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to watch the movie, I wanted, it was a stage reading, and I even made a vow that I'm not watching this movie till I eventually somehow get to mount a production of this where I, get to put it on its feet. Hasn't happened. It's not a play that many theater companies touch. And I bet you in this day and age, it's probably not something they're going to touch. I was talking to a buddy of mine that we did it with. We talked to Mike, and he's like, I don't think anybody touches it now. There's some questionable content and obviously the language, and then, talking about culture and things like that. But I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. One thing I tried to, the big monologues, I tried to make them more apart so I can not really rely on the script as much and kind of just because in a stage reading for a monologue, if you learn the monologue, it's okay. The other ones though, the lines, it's just, you got to listen. You got to listen, and you really got to be present. Even with a script in your hand, it's tough. It's tough with a script in your hand. But I think we did a good job with it. Obviously, would always like another crack at things. I'm a lot older now. I feel like I have more life experience. I have kids. I'm married now. When I did it 12 years ago, I was younger and I didn't have any of the above. So I always it's one that I would like to play any character in that play. Ricky Roma was awesome. I would play him again. I would play any character. The cop I would play, Dean. Okay, so I know you're like, I was only the cop. I'd play the cop just to be in the show. I'd play every role in the show. I mean, think about it. 6 of those actors were nominated for Oscars, and 4 of them won. Not for those performances, but of those main characters, 6. I mean, that's incredible. And they sunk their teeth into it and they did well. It's just a great piece for actors, and wrap your head around the mammoth speak and just the words that you're saying and the circumstances. It's just a great piece. It's just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. And I'm glad you were a part of it because
it was a lot of fun. It was an honor to be asked to be a part of it. You can't find it anywhere on YouTube. It'll stay in the vaults. But it was great, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of that. And it was a lot of fun just to be on stage witnessing that happening as well, and flipping through the pages. When you do a staged reading, you basically have a binder with the script in front of you, so you're actually reading it and acting it at the same time as best you can.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun of reading those lines and seeing them being performed as they were. So this is a lot to digest. This is the film is an hour and a half, and we went for about an hour and a half. So there's a lot to digest in this film, but it is a masterclass in performances. It is a masterclass in ensemble acting. This is one of those films that it's like watching a verbal ballet. It really is. And don't take the language as a bad thing. It is a part of the film. It is as much a part of the way that the characters communicate and what they say. They may use the F word a lot, but it means different things in different times. And it's so important when you're watching the film that you get involved and immersed into this lifestyle and into the way these people are, and how just they're kind of sad sack, really, really sad sack losers. And this is kind of the world they inhabit. I can't recommend it enough. Like I said, I've loved it since it came out. It is one of my favorite films. It is highly recommended. And go see it. It's available on streaming. It's available everywhere. You can pick up a Blu-ray as well. And if it ever gets mounted again in Broadway or in a play, definitely go check that out too, because you have to seeing it live is a whole other thing, because you really got to come correct. You don't get retakes and do-overs. So it is really is a special play. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. We, as always, thank you for your support. But more importantly than thanking you for your support in this episode, I want to thank Sean Grady for spending time with us and giving some of his insights into this film and spending time with us. We appreciate it, Sean. Thank you for having me. I love the show, guys, and I look forward to more in the future. I'm a fan. Awesome. Yep. Awesome. That's going to do it. And as always, this is Dean for 3324 Podcast, asking you to please be kind and rewind.
You've been listening to the 3324 Podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 Podcast and on Twitter at 3324P to join the conversation.